This is the MIAA Weekly.
Welcome to the Week 5 edition of MIAA Weekly. I am joined with our expert, John Dykstra. John, you've survived a month of this show. How are you doing?
We've survived the month of the MIAA, which continues to confound and keep you on the edge of your seat. So it's been fun, but I don't know if expert's the right term when you look at my pick'em. So.
Well, we'll let the year-end stuff determine all that, but let's go ahead and kind of pull up what we had for this last week, and then we'll get in some of the games. But in taking a quick look over things, I don't think anything was shocking on the page necessarily. Some big outcomes with Northwest beating Emporia, who was unbeaten at the time. Central Mo getting everything they can handle from Nebraska Kearney. And Central Oklahoma rolling against Fort Hays State. We'll get to that a little bit later. But let's go ahead and kind of first review a little bit of Players of the Week. And a shocker here, Zach Zabrowski gets Player of the Week. Who would have thunk it? What did he do this time, or did he just kind of have a normal week?
He kind of did his thing. A couple more interceptions than usual. But, I mean, when you throw 45 for 69 for 526 yards, 5 TDs, couple picks. But yeah, that's pretty good. I feel like we grade Zabrowski on the curve, so maybe that's
fair.
not as impressive as some of these other weeks, but definitely worthy of an accolade there.
I would agree. Now, on the defensive side, we have a new name. We've got Carter Edwards, who got Defensive Athlete of the Week. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, last week I made my case for how the heck Shane Fredrickson didn't win this award after his block kick and pick six the week before. Well, they decided to reward the Northwest defense this week. Carter, really good game, kind of step into that linebacker role. He has all year, but taking that on, 8 tackles, a couple tackles for loss and a sack, just really well-rounded. This feels like almost a tip of the hat to great defensive effort as a team by Northwest, though. You could have given it to several guys, but Carter's definitely deserving.
Yeah. So, then as we go ahead and we kind of go to our final Player of the Week or what have you. We have a Special Teams Athlete of the Week here from Central Oklahoma. I didn't realize that they did any punting in that game, but tell me a little bit about that.
That's what I was going to say. He hasn't had to punt very much this year, so I guess you recognize him. It was almost 50 yards a punt though, and he penned 2 inside the 20. So it's a really good punting day. Not a great day, I don't think, for kickers across the MIAA. So get it to a punter and 49.8 yards a punt's pretty good. So give a tip of the cap to UCO, I suppose.
Absolutely. Well, we had kind of talked a moment ago about the initial, the game list we had. And I want to talk for one moment about that Northwest and Emporia State game, 14-9. Just a quick glance, you're thinking, okay, this game is not exactly what you would have expected with Emporia State, but let's go ahead and pop in and take a look at some of the video that we have here. And, John, as we go ahead and we see early on, Northwest having problems right away. What happened here, buddy?
A little muff punt. They've had a little bit of issues in punt return, but one of what ended up being 7 turnovers. And there's that guy Tyler Common. He's a pretty good receiver right after that, and getting him the ball for that touchdown. But here's Henry Martin, who comes in, is kind of the goal line red zone quarterback, and got a rushing touchdown, and then another turnover. The only one of the day for Emporia, but it was a big one to get the ball back to Northwest there. There's a safety on the fumble too. The highlights are just coming fast and furious. But
yeah, kind of a wild play there.
Safety there gives them a 9-7 lead in this game, and they're obviously excited about it. But here's a big hit by Travion Taylor getting the sack. He's really kind of broken out this year. And Gunnar Gundy ended up not returning to the game after that. And then this is a heck of a catch by
Yeah, it was
Luke Matthews, who's really broken out this year for the Bearcats.
Yeah, and then as the game kind of continues here, you see right at the end there, Shane Frederickson makes a great play on what was a pretty sticky situation there for Northwest. Ball's at the 15-yard line. Emporia looks like they're going to be marching on in, and they're able to go ahead and kind of hold them back at the last moment in a game where every possession mattered, and really kind of a little bit more of an old school Northwest game. Gunnar Gundy leaves this game just before halftime due to an injury. Wasn't really effective, if we're going to be really honest about it. Tyler Common still ends up with 9 grabs for 60 yards, being a huge part of their offense. And on the other side, Northwest somehow wins the game with 7 turnovers. Now, that's something that you wouldn't have had on your bingo card. But Shane Frederickson, once again, another great game. They were able to go ahead and get 5 sacks in this one. They were still able to throw. Northwest was able to throw the ball well enough. But this was a wild game. And Emporia State, we kind of talked about it the other night. They had been winning a lot of close, low-scoring games. And this one here kind of finally got them. And so all of a sudden, you go from Emporia State at 4-1, and Northwest Missouri State they start off, 0-2, end up now they're 3-2, and seemingly very much in the MIAA race. And you
got to remember that's 3-1 in the MIAA as well.
Exactly.
One of those losses is Minnesota State, so they're sitting in second right now in the MIAA.
Well, who better to kind of come talk to us about this situation than the leader of the band in his 7th season at the helm for the Bearcats, Coach Rich Wright. Coach, how are you doing?
Doing great. Just got off the practice field.
Now, Coach, you got a chance to relive that game through the highlights. A few ups and downs, but you got to be thrilled by the fact that you still came out with the W.
Yeah, anytime you can win a game in the MIAA, I think you take it however it comes. We did not play perfectly as far as a football team is concerned. We played extremely well defensively, and that helped kind of carry us through the football game.
Coach, let me ask you. I was there for your opener, and I'm sorry if I'm bringing up wounds. I was there for your opener with Mankato, and you guys just did not look like the Bearcats in that football game, if I'm going to be real frank with you. And, you've gone through, that football game, there was a whole lot of emotions. You guys are down at half, 22-0. You come roaring back. You get within a score. Mm-hmm. Then you weren't able to quite win it. Then you have a tough game against Kearney. You have all these swings of emotion and then win 3 games in a row since then, and you're right there in the MIAA race. This is all within the course of 1 month, Coach.
Yeah.
How were you guys, your staff, your team, doing with all of the ups and downs you've experienced in this first month?
I think the first thing is, and it's a little bit indicative of football versus a lot of other sports, because in other sports you can fumble, no pun intended, early. If you're a basketball team and you play 35 games, or you're a baseball team and you got multiple double headers, we were trying to figure out who we were, and
sure,
we had some turnover from the year prior, and things that we thought we were going to be able to do, frankly, we weren't able to do. And you can't do that against a good team like Mankato State. And they came in with a lot of return guys and actually had a game plan with the tempo and stuff that really kind of caught us off guard because we didn't anticipate it.
Sure.
Still had kind of a hangover going into week 2. Didn't want to panic after a 1-week scenario, but just kind of introspectively looked at ourselves and said, A, we feel like we have a good football team, and B, there's some things that we've got to change. So starting into week 3, we made some modifications, more on offense than defense. We were going to have to win. We were going to have to score. We were going to have to do things differently than what we intended to start out the season. And since then, I've kind of taken off.
Coach, in the third week of the season, there week 2 technically, you were down 14-0 to Hayes, and that it definitely feels like the turning point of the season right there. Since then, the defense has given up like 15 points. They've been dominant. What have you seen from that side of the ball? You talked about changing offensively, but the defense really seems like it has maybe taken that next step too.
Yeah, I think for us, some of it's been in the game against Hayes. The one thing that I hadn't been real pleased with is our opening drives of the year. We've given up points in our first 3 football games in opening drives, and that's not indicative of who we are. Did it against Hayes, and then they had a quick turnover, had the ball on our 10-yard line and scored. Well, once offensively we could gain some momentum back, we really kind of took that game from halftime on and really never looked back. Since that time, defensively, we've really been playing well from the outset. And so just kind of trying to dictate tempo to the offense. Our run defense has kind of come together. We have a few new starters, so there were some gap fits, some things like that we weren't doing as well as we needed to be doing. But just really focusing on details and getting better every day in practice, and it's starting to pay dividends for us.
Coach, early in the season, I got the impression, you guys were looking to be able to establish the run, be able to be a balanced football team, a team that would very much obviously fit the identity of a defensive-minded coach. Mm-hmm. Since that time, it seems like you guys have found some success through the pass game, but it also at the same time, there seems to be a certain risk reward with it, meaning a high risk reward, meaning you guys are able to maybe throw for 300 yards and some touchdowns, but there may be 3 picks with it. Right. Have you also kind of felt like you guys have had to ride the wave a bit offensively?
A little bit, yeah. And I think anytime you start throwing the ball a lot, turnovers are going to happen. What we talk about more than anything else is what's the plus minus at the end of the game. And I'll be frank with you, I've never experienced a game where I lost the turnovers by 6 and 1. But we were just that good on Saturday. I mean, Emporia State's got a good football team, and when you can hold them and that group of receivers to a long catch on the day of 14 yards. Wow. I think their starter was 6 of 20 before he exited the game. We held him to 160 yards passing, I think, and 55 yards rushing on the day. We turned out a pretty good performance.
Sure.
Speaking about that defense, Coach, the last 2 weeks you had Devontae Campbell, maybe the best tight end in the country for Southern, and then you get Tyler Common, maybe the best slot receiver in the country. What's been the key to we just talked about Shane Fredrickson, how well he's been playing, but that whole middle of the defense being able to slow down a couple huge playmakers like that the last 2 weeks?
It's really just getting everybody on the same page in terms of our zone structures, when we want to play man, things like that. But, it's everybody doing their job, and you're going to, in order to take something away, you're going to have to give something back. So we've been able to, especially the last 2 weeks, we've been able to neutralize people's running games. And when you can do that, then I can commit more people to the passing game. And that's been a help.
Coach, your quarterback, Chris Runke, between the Emporia game of a year ago where he kind of got thrown in the fire a bit, and then leading through this year where, let's be real frank, Minnesota Mankato came at him. And, going through all of that to where he's at right now. Tell us a little bit about his experience and how he's progressed.
Yeah, up until, the first game obviously wasn't what we wanted, but, up until this week, he's been pretty good with the football for the most part, and he sees the field extremely well. I think one of his characteristics is he doesn't get rattled. He's a very calm kid. He's not going to be the rah-rah guy that I think a lot of people think, with college football players. That's just not his persona. But in some ways, I think that helps him. He's pretty cool and calm, never gets too high, never gets too low. And, he's still learning. And the thing that we've really focused on is just getting better as a football team. We don't have to win. Chris doesn't have to win us football games. We have to win as a team. And however we can get that done, we're gonna try and go get it done.
Coach, spin it forward a little bit. Washburn this week, a road trip to Topeka. Their record doesn't indicate it, but they've been very competitive with some very good football teams. So what are you seeing? Obviously, Craig's been there a long time. You kind of know what you're going to get with the Craig Sure coach football team. But talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing for the Ichabods and what you expect Saturday.
Yeah, you've hit it on the head. They've played really tight football games in every game they've played. The end of the Emporia game kind of got away from them, but that was a really good game well into the third quarter. They've got very good skill kits. Look like they're relatively new in the offensive line, but they've got they've got a couple of really good receivers. They've got a talented back. They're utilizing a 2-quarterback system. They run a ton of formations at you, so you've got to be prepared for a lot of things. And then defensively, when I turned on the tape this year, again, some new faces, but they're playing really hard. They're playing physical. They're flying around to the football. This is a good football team. We're going to have to go to Topeka and play.
Coach, I mentioned when I made my visit down there at the beginning of the season, I had a chance to visit our guy, Brandon Meisner, in his rehabilitation center. First off, I wanted to really kind of tip my hat to you guys and Mankato for both doing our guy Brandon a real solid by going ahead and putting that sticker, the same sticker that I have right here in my hand, for our guy right there. I know there's people who across, in the MIAA world who know a little bit about our guy, Brandon. Nationally, not so much, here and there, people who really pay attention to this. I know that you've gotten a chance to know Brandon over the years. I figured I'd just give you a chance to say a few things because I feel certain that he will get a chance to watch this. And this will be a chance for you to communicate, Coach.
Well, I'll tell you what, Brandon, Division II doesn't have the platform it has without Brandon Meisner. What he's done for our level of football is unbelievable. The time and the commitment that he's made to this level of football is bar none. And I know a lot of you guys have jumped on and really tried to help carry the torch, and I think that that's phenomenal. But I mean, I think it's impactful for us all if you think about it for a minute that. I think a lot of times in the world you feel like what difference can one guy make? And I think he's made a tremendous difference on our sport and on our level in terms of notoriety and respect and just coverage in general. I had a funny side story. Somebody was complaining after the game that they couldn't get on D2 football and get all the scores. And I was like, Brandon did that. And they were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And
all day long.
Yeah, and it's just something he was extremely passionate about, and I love him to death. And as soon as the season's over, looking forward to get down seeing him. He's a real special dude to everybody around here, and just wish him the best.
Well, once again, I really appreciate you guys with that gesture, Coach. I sat next to him at his rehab center, and I showed him this, and I explained to him what the story was. And he got pretty emotional about it because it meant that much to him that you guys would see him as that being that important of a guy in this world. So that was, I really appreciate, and I thank you very much for coming on with us, making some time out of your busy schedule. And good luck for you and your group the rest of the way, okay?
Hey, thanks a lot for having me.
Well, John, there we have it. We're about to say we got a chance to hear it right from Coach, and now we've got a few other games that we got to talk about. But you know what? The Bearcats are looking like they're kind of the story again, John.
They are very interesting right now because you tell anybody that the first 2 weeks and it was panic time for everybody outside that building. It felt
it was. I didn't see any of that. What are you talking about?
No, there's no overreacting Bearcat fans ever.
Well, it's been quite a swing of emotions, but let's go ahead and kind of move to our next set of games that we have. We've got Fort Hays taking on Central Oklahoma. John, this one was 49-10 at halftime. They
at the end of the third quarter.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh,
And no, it was 49-10 at half, right? Or no, I'm sorry, not 49, 34 or whatever it was. Yeah.
35.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was such a one-sided
We're not
contest.
math guys here.
Yeah. So, and Jet Huff having another big game. You know, you made a reference. Is Jet Huff maybe the next Zembrowski? What do you think?
I don't think the numbers are going to be that crazy, partially because of how good their running game's been thus far, but he might have a similar impact in raising a team that was kind of in the middle to lower part of the conference to right near the top, and that's where they're sitting right now, is at the top of the conference. So between him and Terrell Davis, you're going to have a hard time finding a quarterback receiver combo putting up those types of numbers every week.
Well, at the same time, Fort Hays seems like they're going through whether it's an injury or changes at quarterback.
Yeah.
Their offense looks like they're a little bit in flux, and at the same time, their defense, which we thought was going to be really reliable, has kind of had some challenges of late.
I'll be interested to see it moving forward. Maybe UCO's offense is just that potent, but yeah, they've struggled a little bit, kind of ever since that point we talked about where Northwest turned its season around. That's Hayes has kind of gone the other way since then. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues. They're still 3-2, 2 losses. It's not done yet, but it's kind of win or it might be done time.
Well, Central Oak is now 4-0, and we'll be looking at your power rankings, end of month power rankings. Not that we're trying to
tease.
Not trying to tease anything, but I'm just saying.
Oh,
but the gold chain strikes again. But let's go ahead and move to the next game. This was a little wild.
yeah.
You know, you've got Kearney and Central Missouri playing. Got a halftime score 27-7. Okay, they have this one well in hand. Well, after 3 quarters, we're 30-21. Well, then all of a sudden, there's almost a 90-yard pick six, and Kearney's winning. I watched a little of this game on my lunch today, and this was a little wild. Now, they were able to stay the course, Central Mo was, but how long can they continue to win these type of firefights, John?
These might be the two most hard to get a read on teams in the league, and they played each other this week. Kearney's been up and down a little bit and definitely has impressed to where they were thought of preseason and have outperformed those expectations. And UCM, all they do is play close games. Last year, UCM, that was the thing against them. What happens if you get into a close game because they've been blowing everybody out? Well, they're showing they know how to win those close games this year, but it's making people a little nervous too. So that's just a really good game, 1-score game, and good for UCM for finding a way to get it done, but good for Kearney for being right there with the team everybody has had in their top 5 at different points this year in the nation.
And watching that second half, John, I was surprised. Kearney was able to hit shots over the top to pretty wide open guys. And that's got to be a real concern for Central Missouri going forward, is they're just going to need to find a way to be able to not put so much pressure on that offense to literally score a touchdown every drive.
Yeah, and you talked about those shots, 238 yards passing for Reagan Jones and 74 rushing. Good for him. He's the guy that's been in the league for a long time, and he is finding success at Kearney, and really they are outperforming expectations, but he is also showing what he can do. So it's kind of cool story in Kearney, even though they just fell a point short this week.
Well, and then as we kind of continue on, a game that we weren't necessarily sure was going to be real close. Well, and I don't mean having the Riverhawks up 20-3 at halftime necessarily either. But, you know, to the credit of Missouri Southern, they scratch and claw back. As you can see, there was on the left side, it looks like there was a fan or maybe a supporter there who was not thrilled about how the game was going, as you could have seen on the Twitter. And all of a sudden, you know, they're able to pull it on out. Have they gotten off the mat, John, or are they still kind of going to be at, do you think, at the bottom portion of your power rankings?
I don't know if Michael Hudson is a longtime Moso fan, but you could say the same thing about Moso. I've been a big supporter of kind of how they're turning it around there, or were turning it around there, but it's been a rough start to the season, and history has been rough to Moso. So I mean, they found a way to win. It reminds me of the Missouri Western game. Week 0. Northeastern had the lead in that one and couldn't hold on to. So
Right.
you kind of feel for those kids not being able to get that win. I know they've got Lincoln later this year, and that's a chance for a win. But yeah, for Missouri Southern, you've got to be a little worried because they were losing these games before, but they were hanging in there with every team they played. And then
Yeah.
Northwest kind of took them to the woodshed last week, and it seemed to have carried into this week. So hopefully they can get figured out and get a little bit more competitive moving forward and back to where they were at.
We had another game that we had not quite gotten to yet. One that you got correct, if I'm not mistaken. You took Washburn to win this one. I was hanging in with Missouri Western and was, of course, proven wrong here. Getting a chance to watch Washburn a little bit earlier in the year against Colorado Mines. This is a team who can throw the ball down the field and has some good athletes. I have a feeling that they're going to be a pretty stubborn out for a whole lot of teams going forward.
I mean, this Western. Well, I'm going to start off with Western and then hit on Washburn. But
Yeah.
Western running the ball 20 times in this and dropping back to pass 62 times. That's not their recipe. It hasn't been the whole time. And especially doing that with the guy who started the year as your third string quarterback. That's just not going to be a recipe for success for Western. So I know they've been hit by the injury bug, but they're really struggling right now. And this was a chance to maybe get a win, but Washburn got it done at home. And like we just talked about with Rich Wright, the Washburn's better than their 1-4 record indicates.
Absolutely.
It's good. It's good to get that win and get that confidence going. But I mean, Keller Hurla is starting to do some things at quarterback for them and do some really good things. So it'll be interesting now as their schedule gets tough again. I mean, there's that old never an off week in the MIAA, but see what they can do against some of the top teams coming up.
Well, and let's go ahead and kind of take a look at the league standings at the moment. Yeah. Central Oklahoma is up there at the top of the league currently. As you look from there, a lot of the usual suspects showing up now that we're a month in. We've got Emporia, Northwest, and Pitt, and Central all kind of right in line. Well, remember, we were looking a little bit earlier in the year, maybe prematurely at the standings, and they didn't really look like that at that time. So it gives you a little bit of a peek of where we're at, after a month of football. Much in the way of surprises for you here. Maybe Missouri Western, having only one win in conference. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's surprising. We kind of just went over they've got those injuries and everything. Mm-hmm. The surprising thing is there were two teams ranked by a lot of people as top 3 teams in the country, and if you look at that, they're 4 and 5 in those standings right there with Pittsburgh State and Central Missouri. So both still only have the one loss, but have not always been convincing in those wins. So that top 5 in the league feels like it could go any way at this point, and UCO has the inside track with the undefeated record. But that group of one-loss teams in the league is a tough group to break through, and it feels like they're going to beat up on each other all year.
Let's go ahead and look at our top 25. This is our poll, not the coach's poll. Yeah. And we've got in the gray shade there any of the teams that are MIAA squads. Now, as we go ahead and we take a look, there was quite a bit of movement, John, in that mid-teens to late teens area because of the fact that we had a total of, 6 teams lost that were in the top 25 this last week. and a fair amount of them ended up kind of falling on out, like your Henderson States, for example. Now, with that, you did see an interesting movement. Central Oklahoma, I think, has continued to impress voters. Now, for those who have them super high ranked, kind of like the guy I'm on the show with, I don't quite have them as high as John does yet because they've only
Nobody
played
does.
three D2 football games so far, and they're coming off a 5-6 season. So I'm tempering my movement with them, but they moved up from, I believe, 23 or 22
Yeah,
up to
23.
17 with all of that stuff that happened in the middle of that when an Emporia State fell at the same time and so forth. Now, you'll also notice, for those keeping track at home, Central Missouri has dropped down in our poll a few spots. Now, this is what we talked about a little earlier in the year, John. This is an opinion poll. This is polling. This is not standings. So just by winning doesn't keep you in your spot necessarily, especially when other teams are playing strong. So both of the teams that are at 11 and 12 are both unbeaten. So Central Missouri kind of fell back a little bit. It'll be real interesting to see in future weeks if, like a UCO were to keep their momentum and, move past Central and Mo. We're going to have some games coming up very soon that I think are going to impact some of that. And, you got Central Oklahoma who will be playing Rich Wright's Northwest Missouri State. That's just the kind of ball game that could also get the Bearcats back into the top 25, John.
Certainly could. And for being the MIAA homer, 3 of these 4 teams are lower in my poll than they are in this poll when we combine all the votes. UCO is quite a bit higher though.
But you're very temperamental with these teams though. You go very high and low with them.
I was very consistent through the first 3 weeks, and now I've seen enough that my poll and the national poll nearly matched for about 3 weeks, and then these last couple weeks I've seen enough from certain teams to either have a little lower opinion on them or a little higher. Maybe that'll prove too knee jerk at the end of the year, but I love what I'm seeing from UCO right now, and Pitt.
And you should.
I'm not that much lower on Pitt than the consensus is.
If they were going to play today, would you pick Central Oak to beat them?
I would.
I wouldn't. But
see, that's
you. But you keep eating that. But you keep eating that drum. I know.
We're going to talk more about that in.
That smells like a side bet in weeks from now. But
we'll see when I get to see them live and in person here in 2 weeks.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I'm lower on UCM. That defense concerns me, and the offense is beat up enough that I'm kind of waiting and seeing on them. They're still in the poll for me, and Emporia State dropped out of the poll for me this week. I have a different MIAA team that we'll get to in a second, sneaking in to the very back end, but I dropped Emporia State out. I think their offense is struggling a little bit more. May have lost a quarterback this past week, and we'll see. I don't think they're as tested quite as well. They're more tested than a lot of teams in the poll, but in terms of
a one-loss Hornets team, and you're kicked them out of the poll,
kicked them to the curb.
See, you're temperamental. That's what I'm talking about.
That's they have had a couple other scares we talked about before. So anyway, I'm not out completely on Emporia. They could climb right back in, but I'm a little nervous with what I've seen in recent weeks.
We've got Garen Higgins on line 2. He'd like to talk with you, John. That'd be great. But
man, my guy Don Weist. I hope I'm still his favorite reporter in the MIAA.
I was going to say you're getting bullseyes all over the place,
man.
But speaking of bullseyes, you got 5 out of 6 right, John, which is for you wildly high. And
considering I'm 0 for 5 on picking Northwest games this year,
now Massey is still kicking our butt. I'm not sure what our math guru here must have screwed up because Massey's only got 29 games, so they must have tied on one. But anyway, Massey has still got us a little bit, so we'll get into those picks here very shortly. But as we kind of look ahead to the upcoming games. We have an out-of-conference game, John. I love me some out-of-conference games. You know, I'm a Northern Sun guy. You're an
This the Witt
MIAA guy,
special.
and now I'm like a MIAA Northern Sun. And we're used to being in silos for so long that I love seeing this non-con stuff. So,
It is.
so Kearney is making the trip to Marshall to play a Southwest Minnesota team that has been struggling mightily. They have been in search of what's going to happen at quarterback between three different guys, and they just lack an offensive identity, and defensively they've struggled. So this is going to be a tough spot for them, I have a feeling. Kearney is coming in. I'd say playing some decent football.
Absolutely.
Now, it wouldn't be like me to put you on the spot or anything, but Kearney is a 29-point favorite according to Massey.
Oh, Massey knows. We just went over how Massey knows what it's talking about. And that's a pretty
Oh,
good,
okay, there we go then.
pretty good line, in my opinion.
So is Kearney winning and covering, John? What do you got?
I think they just avoid the cover. I had 27-0. I think that Mustang offense is really struggling at this point, and I've seen Kearney compete with some good offenses. So, and they just got tested by Zabrowski last week, and there's no Zabrowski for the Mustangs. So, I had 27-0. I think it's a comfortable win for Kearney. Maybe the Mustangs get some points in there, but I don't quite have them covering. But I think they win comfortably.
I got Kearney winning 40-10, and I got them covering.
Is that going to be your same pick when you go in front of the Northern Sun audience?
Yep. Remember, I don't get that thing from Coach where he tells me which team I'm supposed to pick for motivation for the team. Remember, so I mean, I'm not needling you, but I might be needling you a little bit.
Yeah, I deserve some needling.
Yes. You can't even say it with a straight face. Look at you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't. Wait till we get to that one.
Yes, exactly. We can't get there soon enough. Central Oklahoma. They're going to go play in Joplin against Missouri Southern. This doesn't seem like a real good time for Missouri Southern to have Central Oak come visit.
I don't know if there is a good time for Missouri Southern to have Central Oak, but yeah, it's a rough one right now. We just talked about how they need to be more competitive with these really good teams. I don't think this is the week that happens. I think Jet Huff has a big game, and I think UCO rolls 63-7 was my pick for this one. You
took your foot off the gas a little there, huh?
I'm high on UCO as we have covered, and I think they roll.
UCO on the road, a little bit different beast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. Don't get too excited. I'm not going all that. But remember, in the Kearney game, that was what, like a tie game after 3 quarters or something like that.
Kearney's a better football team than Missouri.
I get you. I think Missouri Southern's going to get some of that pride back, but I still think this is a 42-20 game. Missouri, or by the way, Central Oak's a 14-point favorite according to Massey, who is apparently not even close to you on that one.
Well, Missouri Southern's been in the MIAA a lot longer, so Massey has a lot more data on them.
Fair enough. Moving to our next game, Missouri Western at Pitt State. Now, you're Mr. Down on Pitt State guy. Tell me a little bit why Western's going to keep this close then.
Well, I'm more down on Western.
Fair enough.
I have Pitt 35-10. I think Pitt gets right a little bit in this game. They're still winning. They're still moving forward. It just hasn't been ever since that Ferris game. I feel like we kind of shot them to the moon with they're the team that's going to challenge Harding or all these different things, and
it tends to happen when you beat Ferris by 2 touchdowns. But
yeah. I mean, they can't take anything away from that, but they haven't been quite as convincing the last few weeks. I think this kind of helps them get back on track with the Western team that's struggling. So 35-10.
I'll go 49-14 Pitt State. Okay. They had a week off, and do you know they end up having was it? They end up having like 2 bye weeks, I think, during the season. Do you see that? They only play a 10-game schedule.
Yeah. I think they were looking for another team and couldn't find one, and didn't want to have
Didn't want to hurt
Northeastern
their
State
strength of
on the
schedule by playing the other
Yes.
team they could have played. Yes.
It's an understandable opinion. Northwest made a similar thing a couple of years ago when they took Lincoln off. So
I get it.
It's understandable.
Okay, so here's the big game. Bearcats making their trip to Topeka to play Washburn. Now, did you get past a note like you have the last few weeks?
No note needed.
That says you're supposed to pick somebody else for motivational purposes. At some point we're going to get the real answer from this, but I am taking the Bearcats on the road. I've kind of lived with some of the ups and downs with the offense and some of the picks I've had. Keep in mind, I did pick them a week ago. Just note that. I've got this game here. Let's go Bearcats 31, Washburn 14. I think the Bearcat defense is going to get to the quarterback a little bit, cause some problems. I think they've got not all the mojo back, but quite a bit of it.
I think they're a confident bunch right now, but I think Washburn is better than the.
Oh, here we go.
Like I
here
said.
we go.
If the offense turns it over 7 times again, that's going to be.
We're going to go with that. Okay,
a tough Washburn team. I got the Ichabods pulling one out.
Good governor. Here we go again.
7-6.
We're gonna have to do like a whole separate YouTube video on little bits of you doing the mush.
Luke Matthews during the coin toss asked me who I was picking prior to the game, and I just kind of pointed across to the other sideline. I might have heard a little bit about it post game, so
fair enough.
We're gonna stick with it. I seriously do think Washburn is a much better team than their record shows. Northwest probably will win this game, but I'm for chaos in Topeka. I've seen chaos in Topeka before.
Definitely keeping things interesting. That's John Dykstra there. But the last game we have on our slate, Central Missouri at Fort Hays State.
Northeastern Emporia?
Oh, you know what? I might have bypassed that one. I'm not sure how, but yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were.
Here, we'll take a lot of time on that one. I'll take Emporia State. How's that?
42-14, Emporia bounces back.
That score sounds as good as any to me on that one. Let's get to the game we were trying to get to, Central Mo.
I just didn't want to short.
I appreciate you saying that. I would have gotten all kinds of. I would have gotten more vitriol and hate mail than I already do. So yes, Central Mo going to Fort Hays State. I'm not sure if we totally have a beat on this one. Let's do our kind of tail of the tape per se, as we would have here. And John, I know that you had a chance to kind of punch up the numbers in this one. What were some of the things that stood out for you on both sides?
Well, the simple contrast on both sides. This is a game of different teams' strengths and weaknesses, and everybody knows UCM's strengths: throwing the ball, scoring the ball. Hayes is a much more balanced team. Comes into this. I still have faith in that defense, even though they've struggled a little bit more recently, especially with UCO last week. But Central's a little less of a balanced team than UCO is, so it's a different challenge for Hayes this week. Obviously, when you just look down the list there, Hayes has a better defense, UCM has a better offense, and it's going to be a little clash of styles and two teams that really need this win. If either one drops it, suddenly those playoff chances are looking real slim.
So in this case here, I see Fort Hays. I see this trip being risky. If Fort Hays were to go ahead and kind of get their mojo back a little bit and play the type of football game they want to, that's a real dangerous game for the way Central Mo is playing defense. Right now, yards allowed, they're right around 150th out of 159 teams in Division II right now. And that's a real dangerous spot where every week you're having to kind of hope you just score more. So I I like Central Mo to win this game, but I have a feeling that we run a little bit of that risk. I've got a 40-30 game here. Do you think Fort Hays
Okay.
State, in their current version of them offensively, can score enough to hang around in that kind of game?
I think against Central Missouri's defense, they can. Against other teams' defenses, I would say no, because they've been struggling a little bit more. I have a blowout by UCM standards, 45 to 42, 3-point win. It's been
Okay.
1 point the last couple of weeks, so I think they make exponential improvements and really pull away in this one. But no, I think UCM's just a little too much offensively. But man, I gotta see it from that UCM defense before I have almost anybody with 30 points or under against them, because they are struggling right now.
Well, next up is the segment that everyone apparently has been waiting for.
Yeah.
John's
No.
MIAA Power Rankings. We're going to do this at the end of each month. So for those who are new to the show, don't worry, you haven't missed this before. Boy, I just can't wait to see what you might break out here.
I'm ready for it. But next week we have Witt's Boss's Pizza Entree Power Rankings.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. We need to get a sponsorship for this bit. That's a great idea, John. Especially food. You and I, that's right up our alley.
Oh yeah, we can handle that.
Okay, so everyone is just sitting on the edge of their seat.
Oh man.
Let's unveil the bottom 5 first. We'll do 6 through 10.
Ooh.
And our crack staff with the graphic, I just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah, that looks nice.
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
a little bit different than my
took entirely much longer than you would expect from the average person my age. But as we look at this here, you've got Fort Hays State at 6. You got Kearney 7, Washburn 8, Western, and then Southern to round it on out. For those at Kearney who think they're better than that, defend yourself.
They were picked 10th to begin the year, and they have impressed. They have moved up the rankings quite a bit.
Didn't they beat Northwest this year, or was that another season?
They have a huge win at Northwest. Feels like a different season for the Bearcats, but it happened.
For the beat writer, especially.
Yeah, well, apparently not. I keep picking against them every week, so we'll get to that. No, I think I was going to start out and paint that positively, because Washburn and Kearney were the last 2 teams in everyone's preseason poll.
Understood.
In the MIAA.
Yep.
And I think both have impressed this year with the way they played. And they've gotten that bump for a reason. As we'll see, these one-loss teams in the MIAA that we talked about before, all capable of beating up on each other, it's just a hard group to crack into. So I think Kearney at 7 is as high as I could put them right now. But, I mean, they have certainly impressed, and they are not the worst team in the MIAA as was picked in the preseason. Now, Southern has struggled. We covered that. They're a little lower there. And Missouri Western is probably the biggest disappointment in the league right now from where they were picked. Injuries have had their toll on them, but they were already struggling. So I have Western. They lost to Washburn. They beat Southern. So I don't see where else you can put them other than 9.
Well, I'm curious to see where you're going to land on the crush you currently have on the Fighting Adam Dorrells. So you and the gold. Let's see where the gold chain. Oh, good governor! You have him on the top line. The hits keep on coming. So you have. Explain yourself. Explain yourself.
We keep talking about the small sample size for UCO. And for some reason we reference
they played 3 games this year in D2.
A year-old sample size, like that's more important than the games we played this year. Games we played this year, they beat UCM, outscored them, beat UCM at their own game, and they're the only undefeated team in the league. I think UCO is a really good team, and right up there with the best teams in the country. Honestly, they are clearly not number 1 in my national poll, so I'll stop that right before we get to that. But they are the highest team in my national poll in the MIAA. And they're the highest team in this poll. This poll is not, or this power ranking is not indicative of my top 25 poll all the way down, as we point out with that number 2 team, who is not that high in my national poll.
No need to make excuses. Just these are your numbers.
But the way they are playing right now, and if they were on the field, I think they would. They are higher than that. I have UCO in a tier by themselves at number 1. If we were breaking this up into tiers, and then I have Northwest and Pitt State at that second.
Well, hold on.
Kind of
all the people from Pitt State who are currently looking up your home address to send you a pipe bomb, they would like an explanation for how their one-loss Gorillas team, who beat Ferris State, is is behind Northwest, who lost to Kearney, who's on the page at 7.
Well, it's how they're playing now. Power rankings instead of
not way back when, earlier in the year, you mean?
No.
Okay.
How they're playing now. And right now, Pittsburgh State lost to Emporia, who I have in front of them. In Pitt, they lost to them. And Northwest just beat Emporia and did it despite losing the turnover battle by 6 points and having over twice as many penalties in the game as Emporia did.
It's like a math equation the way you're arriving at this, but keep on going.
It is. Well, it is a very confusing middle tier, and hence why I have UCO by themselves at the top. This kind of 2 through 6, I could see going a lot of different ways. Maybe throw Kearney in there at 7 as well. But it's the old any given Sunday with them. But it's just how I have it right now.
Okay.
Northwest is playing as good a football as anybody not named UCO in the league. Obviously, by where I have them, I have significant questions about UCM's defense, and Pitt just hasn't quite looked as dominant since that Ferris game. They certainly have it in them, and I'm not going to be surprised if they're number 1 on this list at the end of the year. But right now, I haven't seen it from Pitt the way I wanted to see it after that week 0 game.
Where would Emporia have been before their game against Northwest?
And they would probably been number 2 before that, because they had beaten Pitt, and they had not looked as convincing. Like I said, they were undefeated, just like UCO. UCO had been a lot more impressive, in my opinion. So they probably would have been number 2 right ahead of Pitt because of that head-to-head loss.
There you have it. So Emporia now behind Central Missouri.
They are.
So if those two met on the field today, you're taking UCM.
I would pick Zabrowski and UCM to outscore them and win that game. I think we also have some injury questions with Emporia losing Gunnar Gundy this week. I don't think it's a long-term thing.
Fair point.
But there are some question marks about Emporia right now. And yeah, that middle tier is just really hard to figure out. And I would welcome your power rankings next week.
Well, they don't tune in for my power rankings,
they might not be tuning in for mine anymore.
But say no, they will after this entertainment.
Man.
But I have not soured on Pitt State probably as quickly as you have. I'll leave it at that.
They would be, if you would pick them and you would put them 1 if this were your thing.
I would have a hard time not picking them in any game right now in the MIAA. But when I saw them close up, I was extremely impressed with how they defended a Ferris State team that is very fast and very, I have a lot of respect for Tony Anise and what he does with that program. So
it's hard to argue. That's among the most impressive wins in the country thus far. So
yep.
It's hard to argue. The nice thing is we got half a season to watch this play out on the field, and I guarantee they will not look like this at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I mentioned to you a little bit before the show that there was something that I wanted to chat about with UCO, and this graphic looked better when it wasn't quite as blurry on my screen right now. But trust me, here's what we had, and this is just the Massey printout of the UCO schedule as we kind of go top to bottom throughout. Now, for what it's worth, Massey has UCO losing to Northwest in a few weeks. They also have them losing to Pitt State. And I'm not here to point that out. I just am mentioning kind of some observations.
Yeah.
Here is the observation I had when looking over their schedule is the best teams that they have remaining on their schedule, John, are Northwest, Pitt, and Emporia. Fair statement?
It is. I think you're getting to a point that I made last week.
Yeah, so all three of them being home games. And when you look at that, the way that they have played at home, and we'll see how well they've traveled. But Coach Dorrell mentioned a week ago that in his previous few years there, they weren't winning games on the road against teams with a winning record.
Yeah.
So this seems to really kind of shape up well for what they've been doing well. And, do you see it kind of the same way when we look at that remaining schedule for a team that's still unbeaten in conference?
To even expand that, I mean, they had UCM and Hayes at home too. The entire top half of the league has had to go to Edmond this year. That is an interesting scenario, and it's certainly not their fault, but something to watch. Yeah, Massey obviously is high on the blue bloods. They always are, but they are also beating us in the pick'em, so I can't almost blame them.
No,
But
agreed.
but they're higher on them. But UCO, man, that schedule just sets up really nice. Edmond's a long trip for almost anybody in the league. It's set up real nice for UCO right now, but I don't have to tell you that I believe that.
Yeah. Well, let's go. Let's show some appreciation, if we could, from who gave
Absolutely.
us video. John, I'll let you kind of own that piece, if you would.
My guy Brett Kennedy down at KQ2 in St. Joseph, he's been a regular at submitting video for us this year and cut up those Northwest highlights. KQ2 does a great job covering Northwest and Missouri Western. So always nice to have Brett working behind the camera for us.
Yeah, and I always want to kind of throw out a shot to the MIAA network,
Yeah.
and Mike Racy and his staff are really top notch. They've helped us from the moment we decided to launch this, and I can't say enough about them. If you're wildly bored on the Twitter machine, you can see there's John's information there. There's mine in the event that you're looking for someone new to follow. John, I'm going to give you a little bit of a moment here. For folks who don't know that much about the Maryville Forum, what can you tell them about that, and what a great deal you guys have for them?
That was going to be my point. That's my personal Twitter up there, right there. But
Yep.
If you want the sports updates, that at Sports MDF is it's basically my personal Twitter as well. That's where I tweet the sports updates and the Northwest stuff. So I would give that a follow more if you're looking for the Bearcat and the MIAA stuff. But also you can get a subscription to the forum where we'll have all your Bearcat coverage. Basketball season right around the corner, which seems insane. Media day for the MIAA is next week. So I'm going to have full previews on every MIAA team for basketball season coming up too. So $29 for a year gets you all of those and all of our football, basketball, all those sports all year round. So go check out the Maryville Forum. We try to give you some content even if we can't pick the games. So we try to keep you informed as best we can.
And on my side, for those who can't get enough of these, small college podcasts that we're doing, John's show is always going to drop on Tuesday evenings. My NSIC Weekly show with Tom Frederick will drop on Wednesday evenings, along with our GLIAC show. And then the RMAC show we have will drop on Thursdays, just so for those who can't get enough of this, you can go ahead and kind of plan accordingly. Find it on our YouTube page, our Facebook page, and what have you.
A couple recommendations for MIAA fans that might just be getting into this. The GLIAC show with Tony, they are in Super Region 3, and that as you start, we have a lot of teams in playoff contention now. So I highly recommend kind of following along with the GLIAC, which is obviously one of the top leagues, and in the Sunday show, the national show. If you want kind of the overall view of how that picture's playing out, I highly recommend the Sunday show every Sunday at 7 Central here.
Absolutely. Well, our mailbag has a few trivia questions for current MIAA stats. Now, I know last time we did this, you felt really good coming in. Didn't do so.
Last time, right?
Yeah.
I got Runke as the passing leader. I forget what the other ones were. I remember I started hot. We might have faded down the stretch.
I think there was more than a maybe, but okay. Here's going to be your first question.
Okay.
Who is the sacks leader in the conference right now?
We're going defense.
Yes. See, you never know what you're going to get with me. See, Frederick thinks he's got all the answers, and then I change the questions on him.
I got a name that came to mind right away. I think I'm going to go with it. I'm going from our friends up north who I might have insulted with their 7th spot ranking. Give me Q Felton from UNK.
Wow, he starts off hot. I think you started off hot last time too,
I did.
And then from there, things went fairly predictable.
I'll take that. Nailing the sacks leader and him being a loper, that's a good start for me. So
okay,
I'll take it.
Defense again. This is like a defensive theme here, I think.
Okay, testing me.
What squad is the best in the conference in terms of points per game allowed?
Points per game allowed.
And don't be clicking on your thing. We're yep, exactly. Hands on buzzers.
Points per game allowed. I am going to say that is probably. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody that's obvious. That's had some shutouts. I'm going to say that is. I think I'm wrong, but I'm going to say Fort Hays State.
Northwest Missouri State.
Dang it. The Minnesota State game had me worried that was too much.
Hopefully you get a hard time from all the Bearcat folks about that
one.
Oh,
I'm already
deservedly so. That I might have set you up for that one.
God,
okay.
I wanted to say them, but I was like, that Minnesota State game. But
yes.
9 points the last 2 weeks helped.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the last question actually is not a defensive question, but it's what team has scored the fewest points in the MIAA this year?
There's 2, and I'm debating between the 2. And I think the correct answer Missouri Southern.
He gets 2 out of 3 right this week. We're going to have to make the questions a little bit more difficult.
This is no Tom Frederick you're dealing with here. This is a professional question answer.
Okay, well, you know what? We'll give you the extra credit question.
Okay.
I was going to give you in the event that you didn't do well, which I might have been planning on. Our guest last week. Our guest last week, the guy with the gold chain. Yep, the CEO. Yeah. What years was he at the helm when the Bearcats won the national title? What years was he the head coach? Meaning what they won 3 titles.
Yeah. 13, 14, 15, right?
13, 15, 16.
Dang it. Why did I have 3 straight in my head? It was right before I came here. I'm disappointed. Colin and Matt Trenton can come after me for that one.
So if I have this right by my count, the 2 questions you got wrong
were the Bearcat ones. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
I've been wrong on the Bearcats all year. You sense a theme? I can't figure out those boys from Maryville.
Well, that's all we've got for this
Thank
week's
goodness.
show. John, I appreciate you making time again. It was great for us to have Coach Wright join us. Thanks again, Coach. And we're going to hope to keep you guys entertained every week. Keep an eye out for my guy John on the sidelines. I will be in the sidelines of the Northern Sun this week. Still figuring out my game just yet. It's only Monday. But everybody, thank you once again. Thanks, John. And we're out.